and I've been doing some ongoing collaborations with the lab here between music and dance, and I'm really excited for this next project. So today, this is really a work in progress, something that we've been combining these artists together just in the last 2-3 days. So you're seeing something that's very fresh, not a finished, polished work. But that's really interesting to be able to talk a bit about process and what's inspiring us and connecting us. So there'll be a little bit of talking and a little bit of showing what we've been up to. I want to just very briefly introduce our team. So we have Richard Colton here, who's the director. Dancers. We're working with Storyboard P and Castri. Coming from Canada, we have the violinist Emmanuel Vukovich, who I met 20 years ago as an undergrad. So it's a great pleasure to work with him again, and I'll let him take over from here.
Thank you, Zosha. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I would just like to say a few brief words. Resilience is an album that I recorded 2 years ago now in Canada. It was released last November by Warner Music Canada digitally. This is the book. There's copies of it there. They're for sale. They come with a box. And the inspiration for the project, and this idea to resist, to become resilient to the world that keeps changing around us. For me, started during my doctoral studies in the music of Bela Bartok. And part of my research for my thesis was to look at the research and the work that Bartok did in recording and transcribing folk music, specifically oral tradition, meaning songs that had been passed down from one generation to the next, all across Eastern Europe, which is where my family heritage comes from. And he went all the way to North Africa. He went east all the way to Turkey, parts of Ukraine and Russia, and he was interested in following these roots or these threads of cultural tradition that has been around, longer than anyone can remember. Because he believed that there was a key in this material for the future of music, and I think the future of humanity. And one could say that 100 years ago, in Central Europe, there was a crisis, cultural crisis, which ended up leading to the 2 world wars. In art, the question was, how do we move towards abstraction? How do we move from representing what we experience outside of us to what we experience within us? And in music, that question was, how do we go from tonality to atonality? And while much of the German-speaking compositional world, led by Schoenberg and Webern in what we call the Second Viennese School, discovered this brilliant intellectual idea that they called 12-tone, which became serial music, the non-German-speaking cohort, led by Bartok and Kodai, were inclined to search beyond the boundaries of classical music or Western music or even music itself, to go out into the country and ask peasant people who could not read or write, most of them, sing me your songs. What is your language? What is your musical language? What is your... And they collected an enormous body. And then Bartok's work, their work inspired someone by the name of Milman Parry at Harvard, who then became... Bartok is known as the father of what we no longer called ethnomusicology, but it was called that. And Milman Perry is considered the father of oral tradition, studies of classical oral tradition. And this body of research, the recordings are all at Harvard, and the manuscripts, the transcriptions, are all here at Columbia. And that's how, after 20 years, I read kind of, well, no, there was a piece of Zosha's that you're going to hear tonight that is on this album. But through that connection or reconnection, I discovered that there's all this research here at Columbia, and then I asked Zosha, and she was like, I'll put you in touch with the head librarian. And so then I went, and I discovered, or I was shocked. I knew as a musician that Bartok had done research of folk music, but I didn't really fathom the extent and the breadth and the depth and the detail to which he went to kind of try to document and record and understand, a language that he believed was going extinct. Anyways, I'm going to stop there. So, yeah, and I guess yes, I will let Richard take it.
Just very briefly,
Yes.
well, thank you so much. What you're going to see next is a dance and music performance of Bela Bartok's solo sonata for violin. And it'll be performed by Emmanuel in Storyboard P. And it was Bartok's next to last work. And it's an incredible work for that it looks back and is inspired by Bach. His chaconne is the inspiration for the first movement of the Bartok. But you'll see what Emmanuel was talking about, how he was starting to use major and minor chords together, and he's also moving between chords. His world is a different one. It's 1945. It's a fragmented world, and he's looking how he can make a sonata, a classical structure, for a new time and to express that new time. It's a 25-minute work. It's in 4 movements, and it's a piece that I thought of Storyboard P immediately. I don't know how many of you remember John Hammond. He said when he first heard Bob Dylan, he felt he was hearing something very, very ancient and also a path to the future. And that's very much what Bartok was looking for. And Story, whenever I'd seen him dance, I thought of very ancient dances, but something that was totally imbued with modernity and the future and the possibility. So enjoy 4 movements. Enjoy them.